Well, the first few months of the COVID-19 pandemic might have forced several businesses to fall on their feet, with top leadership across these companies left with one question: what now and what next? And now, almost 8 months after India announced a lockdown to curb the spread of the COVID pandemic, one thing is clear: that digitization and technology are two pillars Indian new age and traditional businesses can't ignore to make their operations future proof. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of Mint CXO Dialogues in association with Microsoft, as we talk today about how new age companies are redefining customer experience through personalized engagement. Joining us today for this session are Sharad Dhar, Chief Operating Officer of Policy Bazaar, Nitish Asthana, President and Chief Operating Officer of Pine Labs, Manisha Khadge, Director Marketing at iCertis, Tom Stepniak, Asia Lead Emerging Marketing and CX at Microsoft, Shirang Godbole, SVP and Chief Service Officer, Oyo India, and Mohit Gopal, SVP, PayU India. Co-moderating this session with me is Prasid Banerjee, Assistant Editor at Mint. Thank you so much, panelists, for joining us today and taking out your valuable time to share some insights with us. So we're extremely grateful to have all of you. Starting the discussion, my first question obviously goes on to Mohit. So Mohit, PayU is at a very interesting, space per se at present. When you were actually looking at the entire COVID crisis, I wanted to ask you, how critical was technology and digitization for you in terms of just reaching out to customers, right? And what did you ramp up, or did you make some pivots to your tech stack to kind of, reach customers better, also to understand the changing needs and demands of the consumers during COVID? Over to you.
B2B businesses. However, payments itself is largely a B2C activity, right? So we have both merchants and we also have end customers. Now, the good thing for PayU was that since we are on the cloud, we are hybrid cloud native platform, scalable, stable. So on the tech side, it was relatively easier. But what we really saw was behavior had changed, customer behavior changed during the pandemic, and it's been on long enough that we believe that this behavior will actually, will outlast the pandemic. And that has been a need for contactless payments, a need for digital on delivery, requirement for more affordability solutions, both because of the pandemic itself and because of certain economic impact on certain people. So therefore, I think what we could see was a lot of things which we thought would take place over the next 3 to 5 years was sort of compressed in that 3-month period. And we had to do all of that while working from home. So I think from a tech perspective, we were lucky in that we were right from day one designed to be a, shall we say, a tech and a digital platform. So I think that way it was easier for us. But even so, it's one thing to say that you can go out and do it, and the other thing is suddenly, all right, from tomorrow we need to operate in a particular way. I felt that the internal challenges were quite something altogether, and I think it's true for all of us who are either on this call or watching it, is how do you work and collaborate with people when you're working remotely? That is another piece which was tough enough. How do you listen and hear the customer's voice? Because earlier you could actually talk to them, now you are talking remotely and it's on email, or you're trying to analyze data to see patterns of what's going right or what's going wrong. And I think all of those changes are something we're still grappling with, and I think working on.
We can't hear
Sorry,
you.
we didn't
We
hear
can't
that.
hear you. Tarosh.
I wanted to move on to you, Sharad. Sorry about that. I wanted to move on to you, Sharad, about this is, insurance per se, right? It was a very interesting product also during COVID. Awareness has increased. We've seen that in terms of market numbers and market figures. Help us understand now technology and digitization and Policy Bazaar has always been working on those fronts. But when this entire pandemic came forth, there was a newer category of COVID insurance and all those other different products which customer was interestingly getting interested to kind of buy. Help us understand as to what did you do in terms of ramping up your infrastructure and targeting customers better, as well as looking at finding these products and targeting them to these certain set of consumers?
Hi, Tarush. So very interesting, actually. As soon as COVID struck, uh, we were actually in a situation where we have a very large number of sales and service agents who assist customers in their journey, and we had to move from an office situation to a work from home situation almost overnight for over 10,000 of these agents. And that was in itself, a massive task, which we managed to do in the space of a week. A week before the lockdown was announced, we kind of decided that let's move with this, and quickly built out a light system so that our agents were able to operate this using smartphones. Also, at the same time, we shipped out tablets and laptops to agents. We, reimbursed internet charges, and we quickly got our infrastructure in terms of the sales and service piece going. So we were almost without hiccup. We were on, and running from day one of the lockdown, and that gave us a massive advantage in a situation where uh, clearly, a lot of the other channels in the insurance space were kind of grounded for a fair amount of time, and a lot of customers had immediately moved the query and the demands came in on the online side. Uh, so I think one piece was the whole technology piece, but interestingly, also on the product piece, we had to move very swiftly. What we realized very quickly through listening in on conversations that customers were having with our agents, that customers were not comfortable with the process of going to a clinic to do a physical medical. And so we worked very closely with our insurance partners to develop products which would allow customers to, get their medicals done via telemedical or video medicals, and also enabled home visits rather than visits to the clinic in cases where a physical medical was essential. Uh, Also, it had to marketing had to kick in on the same side as well, because customers weren't aware of the fact that you could actually get an insurance product without having to do a physical medical. So we ran ads which said that you can actually get a insurance cover at this time without even having to get out of your home. So we were able to move on all of these three fronts. On the marketing front, in terms of targeting customers, I mean, we were always very aggressive as far as TV advertising was concerned. We moved our media mix in line with where the audiences were going. Everybody at home, a lot more day part viewing. So a lot of changes on that. And on the digital side, we moved in terms of social media, digital targeting out there, using customer profiling that we always had with us. So we were able to target customers, get them on the site, and then asking them a few questions as they came into the site, able to offer them a very personalized product, which would enable them to buy an insurance product without getting out of the home. And that's how all these activities fell in place to make sure that we were up and running really really quickly out there. In fact, we didn't miss a heartbeat out there.
That's glad to know. Definitely. Wanted to come to you, Nitish. Pine Labs, again, interesting space in a congregation of rather online and offline, right? So you see the both the best worlds. So I wanted to understand what happened in terms of digital leapfrogging for you, especially when you were a very major part of the offline economy. When you saw COVID coming in and stepping up, how did you see your technology ramp up going on, and what was the leapfrogging in terms of products or things that you saw internally that you guys quickly kind of found a fix to, if I may, for the offline world?
Look, I mean, first of all, I would say that it almost seems like a year ago that this all started, right?
Right.
So, how quickly the world has adapted is incredible, right? And everybody's got like a positive story to tell on how they adapted. I totally agree with what Mohit said, what Sharad said, how businesses have bounced back. My business, actually, my experience was very interesting because I actually was running First Data and Pfizer for India when this pandemic broke, and 3 months ago I joined Pine Labs. But what we have done at Pine Labs through this period is some very interesting stuff, right? So, number one, if you think about our ability to help merchants get customers back, over the last 2 3 months, as the unlock has been happening, not only just pent up demand, but customers wanting to purchase consumer durables or mobile phones. We run a product called Pay Later, which is essentially if you've got a credit card or a debit card, or you're pre-approved with an NBFC, then you can actually complete a Pay Later transaction at the point of transaction itself. So we went ahead and built this massive network of sorts, which essentially brings over 100 brands together. It brings over 30 issuers on the platform and is available now at over 150,000 stores, right? What we've seen over the last 2 months is that this incredible demand for consumers to go and purchase a whole host of products that they need through a different behavior that you see during the pandemic. So people have been buying furniture, which suits for work from home. Obviously, there's a huge demand for mobile phones. There's a lot of demand for apparel, and all of that is happening. We've seen our Pay Later volumes kind of double as I compare February to, let's say, October, right? And that has happened because I think consumer spending is back, but also because we are enabling customers to get back into the stores and actually exercise affordability as they expand purchase, right? So that's one very interesting thing. Secondly, from a data perspective, I would say that, I think merchants, whether they are small, especially if they're small, are leapfrogging on the digital bandwagon, right? So, like Mohit mentioned, what was going to happen in 5 years is literally happening in 3 or 5 months. I think small merchants are also understanding the value of digitization. And I think we've been out there in the marketplace to enable that to happen, right? Our new customer boarding numbers are actually the highest ever, and these are small merchants. It's a very interesting fact that merchants want to digitize their payments first, second want to move into contactless payments, and third want to start selling online, because small merchants really are feel that they're missing the bandwagon as customers are moving to purchase online. So that's a very interesting trend. The final thing I will tell you is that I think we adapted very quickly in terms of building out digital boarding for merchants. It's very difficult for salespeople to be out there. So over the last couple of months, we actually launched a fully API-enabled boarding process. So a small merchant can actually come on board, and we validate KYC and all kinds of information from third-party databases. And effectively, what used to take 7 8 days for the industry is literally down to an instant now, right? And the entire boarding curve is a very important thing. If you think about it, one of the biggest issues in the SME ecosystem today is how do they come on board a digital financial services platform, right? And I think we have found that not only does that help the merchant, but it helps our entire business to become extremely efficient if we can do that using APIs and digital validation of KYC, and then being able to instantly enable a merchant. Because it's no longer the case of 1 year back, right, where merchants were evaluating or customers were evaluating, should I pay by cash or should I pay by digital? I think it's very clear that across the board, we as consumers and merchants as acceptors of payment, they want to just accept digital payments. And that, as even Mohit mentioned, that that's a trend that's going to survive the pandemic, right? It's going to continue. So I think there's a lot of very, very important things which would have taken a couple of years, which have happened literally in the last 3 months.
I just have a follow on for you on this one. You interestingly spoke about the Pay Later product, right? Which we've essentially kind of looked at from an online perspective, but now there is an expansion into offline per se. How do you see, or what are the new kind of opportunities which are coming up with now offline players thinking more and more digital? That's number one. And number two, tell us a little bit on the Kirana tech opportunity, right? I mean, that's something which I think there was a terminology kind of put for it in the ecosystem, saying Kirana tech is the next big play. So tell us a little bit about that as to what did you see as opportunities there?
Yeah, first I want to preface this by saying that, I think people who work in the payment sector are extremely fortunate because we have like literally a amazing purpose, like people in the insurance sector, like Sharath, right? we are actually part of the economy as it opens. We are part of the economy as it grows. So it's a really important thing, right? I think from a pay later perspective, the offline pay later opportunity is huge. We see expansion into various other categories. I'll give you an example of two-wheelers, right? Now, today, two-wheelers, there are 300,000, 500,000 two-wheelers that get sold every month. Now, if you have to finance a two-wheeler, you have to literally take a paper finance from a bank or an NBFC and then hypothecate your two-wheeler or your bike. That $600, $800 purchase can very easily be converted into pay later at the point of transaction without any paperwork and without hypothecating your vehicle. So you continue to own your product, your asset, and you can actually finance it into 3 months to 12 months. Now, this kind of a thesis extends to categories like apparel, it extends to categories like furniture, it extends to categories like healthcare. Today, in fact, I read an article that even insurance is being financed on EMI. That's a very interesting trend as well, right? And people are actually taking insurance. By the way, it's not just a credit product. If you have a debit card, we have APIs with banks where essentially they pre-approve close to about 50 million customers across 35 issuers, and we run the APIs to check eligibility and then are able to convert that into an installment pay later kind of a purchase. On your second question on Kirana, I think what we are trying to do is build out infrastructure. And it's very heartening to see that the API model and the Android operating system are the two big drivers about Kirana technology, right? So I'll give you an example. One of the FMCGs we are partnering with, where 10,000 of these small dealers will go live, there will be an app on that terminal, on that Android terminal, which will allow the Kirana to order from the FMCG and the supply chain. And in turn, the FMCG will bring back SKU level intelligence to tell the Kirana owner what is he selling and what are the neighborhood stores selling, right? So we are actually getting into a model where this technology can actually power small merchants to go online, sell online, digitize their stores, and also run offers for their customers, right? So effectively, it becomes like democratizing what technology was available to enterprise customers to a very small retailer. I'm extremely excited about that whole move. And we also very fortunate, like I said, that we're in the middle of it, right?
Tarush, I'll quickly ask a question from Srirang. I wanted to come to you because, amongst all of them, I think when it comes to Oyo, there's also a whole new kind of customer that you guys are looking at. So I'm not going to ask you like one pointed question, but I'm guessing because the customer is so important to this business,
Yes.
you would have to do a lot to adapt to this pandemic, right? So just tell us your side, what you guys had to do, what you guys experienced during this period.
Yeah. No, I think Prasidh, fair question, right? And if I were to go across the panel, I think ours would be one of the industries which has been affected the most by this pandemic, right? And we have actually had to do a lot of work in building trust with our customer base to get them back, right? Because I think what we have to realize is that hospitality by itself, and let me talk specifically about India before giving and not global examples. In India, I think hospitality is still very much human driven. We expect whenever we check into a hotel, we expect to be greeted by a person. We expect to have 2-3 interactions during our visit. And even given the situation of this pandemic, one important thing that we picked up from our consumers when we were talking to them was an insane focus that they had on hygiene, right? So sometime in April, in March, when the pandemic hit us, then April and May we obviously capitalized a lot on the opportunities which were provided by Vande Bharat missions, by guests returning back from international locations and wanting quarantine stays, or tying up with local bodies to provide stays to the COVID warriors. But after that, when unlock started happening, an important part for us was to build customer trust. So in all our conversations, they said that cleanliness is going to be very, very important for them. So we said that I think this is a great opportunity for us, And what we would almost require to do at this point of time is to completely build a new product proposition for our customers. So we launched this entire umbrella brand known as Sanitize Stay, and almost in our mind in June itself, we had worked out that this it just cannot be one value proposition, right? It has to be a series of value propositions, 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, 4.0, which start dovetailing with the unlock situation. And as consumers start coming back, we try and ensure that when they start traveling, they start staying in a OYO property, right? So we started off with the sanitized stay campaign, where we tied up with hotel owners and we prescribed a set of protocols for them. And we said that if you adhere to these protocols, you will get a certain tag on our app, right? And on the demand side, we built up that confidence with the consumers. So obviously, owners started seeing that if my property is a sanitized stay property, then I'll start getting more and more demand. Now, once this was over, we said, okay, what next? So we tied up with reputed FMCG brands to build more credibility. We said that if you start using products by other international majors, we'll again certify you with that, and which will help you to draw demand. Then we moved on to this entire part of technology, where we started building contactless check-in, right? So obviously inspired by the airline industry, where all of us are now so familiar with web check-in. But this is not something which has picked up big time in India, right? All of us are familiar that whenever you go to the hotel, you whip out your ID card, you place it on the reception. The guy goes behind, he xeroxes it, he gives it back to you, and you get a key, right? So we said that why can't this entire process be made contactless itself? So similar to how you do a web check-in, right? Why can't you do a virtual check-in? And obviously, this required us to not only develop our tech products but work very closely with government bodies. Then I think there's this very interesting campaign which we have recently launched with Sonu Sood, right? Where you say sanitize before your eyes. So when we started talking to our customers in September, they said that so we asked them that और बताइए हम लोग क्या कर सकते हैं आपके लिए, right? So they said that what, it's great you are saying that this property is sanitized, but what will give me the most confidence is if you actually clean this room and clean the high contact points in this room in front of my eyes, right? That will give me even more confidence, right? And that's why I think that was a great value proposition, because just imagine, all of us are human beings, right? I think while someone might tell us that this place is great, this place is very hygienic, until and unless if there's no show and tell, if you do show and tell, it builds much more confidence, right? So we started off with the sanitize before your eyes campaign, right? So for us, the last 4 or 5 months, if I were to summarize, have been very, very intense in building trust with our consumers, telling them that travel is safe, telling them that if you choose to travel, OYO should be your first option, telling them very clearly that you have this entire trend now where people are working from home, but they want to work in let's say a touristy location, right? So we had this entire Chal Pahad campaign where we said, why don't you come and stay with us in the hills. So for us, I think it's been an outstanding 7 to 8 months. I think we have been, as an industry, while OYO, I think overall the hospitality industry has been forced to innovate, and I think some of these innovations that we have done are going to have a very, very lasting impact on the minds of the consumers, right? And for us, I think the great part is that we run monthly, quarterly surveys where we are seeing that consumers are accepting are accepting these initiatives, and it's also translating into better revenue and better demand for our partners.
Got it. To that point, in fact, Tom, if I may come to you, like he said, that there will be lasting impact out of this. Now, Microsoft is a company which, if I look at who Microsoft's customer is, it's pretty much all of us on this panel, and then everybody else, right? So Microsoft is looking at the market in a much more sort of a macro manner, if I can call it. So what I'm, I think, asking you is that what are all of these things that companies can do, right, at this moment? How do you quantify how these are doing, what the impact of this actually is? And also, do you see any key trends that are coming up, be it India, be it global, Do you see anything coming up?
Well, I thought there was some great examples that you mentioned here, and they all kind of revolved around customer experience, right? And I think we all love having a good customer experience. If any of you would think about the last time that you had something that you consider an amazing customer experience, what was it that made it outstanding? More often than not, I think it's related to personalization. That is definitely the case when I'm dealing with the travel industry, when I'm traveling, when I'm checking into a hotel room, when a business goes above and beyond and recognizing you, remembering you, remembering your preferences and making valuable recommendations. I think that's the ones we like to do business with. That's the ones we like to spend money on. That's the ones we talk about, and we tell friends and family about it. We get engaged, we're loyal. But you asked about how can we quantify that, right? And I think that customer experience can be something that seems a bit like this esoteric concept, where in reality, all it does is it drives engagement and it drives loyalty, and that in the end means it drives revenue. So there's a definitive connection between customer experience, providing that, and seeing the results of that in your bottom line. And I think what you have to do, and what many of you are doing, really from the stories that I hear, there's a big focus on data. If you want to personalize, if you want to provide these great experiences, well, you have to know your customers. You have to know all of their interactions. You have to know all of their preferences. And I think most companies are well on their way today to have that data. That's not the problem, having the data. It's more about connecting it, not having the silos, making sure that marketing, whatever they do, actually translates to what sales needs, that there is no disconnect. I think the average salesperson today has access to great technology, to CRM systems. The average marketing department has access to great marketing technology, but there often would be a disconnect in that regard. So I think what we're seeing, and maybe in that regard, I am a bit spoiled because we get to work with companies that are leaders that take some of these challenges head on and say, look, it's an opportunity for us to drive digital transformation. I think Nitish said earlier, we did something in 5 months that could have taken 5 years. Our CEO, Satya Nadella, said in our most recent earnings report, we've seen 2 years of digital transformation in 2 months. And that's what really we are seeing, these companies that are focusing on unifying customer data, creating views of their customers, that goes way beyond just CRM systems or marketing systems. They're taking this customer data platform approach, having that single view. And again, this is something that will be quantified, not just in, it's a feel-good, better customer experience. This has direct impact on the bottom line, on revenue, and on profitability of an organization.
And do you see any key trends emerging, due to the pandemic, due to the fact that we have to suddenly adapt? Do you see any trends that maybe you could?
Well, I think we started counting the different types of remote. There was remote work, remote schooling. So I think we're now using the term remote everything. And that's, if you look at a lot of the interactions we have with our customers, it's just enabling all of these remote scenarios. Some of them, like working, schooling, may be obvious, but remote selling, and that's not just, okay, I'm using the technology to be able to have a meeting with a client, but really maximizing it, making sure that actually that sales process is faster, it's better. And I look at some of the customers, even in India, that we are partnering with. One of our most recent customers, GeoG Financial Services, they partnered with us, and the result of that was really to shorten their sales cycles. They increased their cross-sell potential, and that all came with that 360 view of customers. Another customer we work with, Magma FinCorp out of India, they took that opportunity to modernize all of their CRM, and that didn't just enable the remote selling, but really tripled the amount of leads that then the sellers had that they could work with. And they were able on the customer side to reduce loan transaction times from 7 days to 7 minutes. So I think that you said it before, like, it's great that we all have these stories that are positive, because obviously this is a crazy and a scary event, what is happening in the world. But I think we are seeing more and more companies really embracing, saying like, look, these are things that are happening. If you look at retailers, the move from bricks and mortar to online, that is happening, and now it's just accelerating. So we talk to retailers to tell us we've seen growth in the online space of 10%, 20%, and now it's 300%, because when there is no longer stores, when there is no longer face-to-face interaction, then your digital channel is the only place you have. And obviously then the experience there is even more important. That's why I keep coming back to that. Whatever the scenario is you want to enable, the experience, whether it's customer experience or employee experience or salesperson experience, needs to be front and center.
Got it. And to this end, Manisha, when all of this is happening, the internal tech stacks that we have, and so yes, we talk about new businesses coming in, but the tech stacks that we have, did we just take existing tech stacks and sort of put them to use because we were getting more uptake, or did you guys also have to see new use cases coming in, and how did you adapt to all of that?
Right. So, I think most of the panelists have covered the key aspect, but as far as iCertis is concerned, I think we kind of lucked out being a technology company and heavily deployed in the cloud, Microsoft Azure, to be precise. And with most of our infrastructure running on Azure, our business continuity planning has been very, very comprehensive. But I would say that COVID-19 situation kind of threw a couple of twists into this BCP scenario for sure. One was certainly that moving the entire workforce working from home virtually, and second critical aspect was the availability of sufficient bandwidth, specifically to deliver required workloads like our source code and control system. So as far as moving everything virtual is concerned, I think our IT team did phenomenal job uh, moving it virtually, and took care of the technical aspects of it. But I would say that it's important to understand when it comes to customers, right? So I feel that every customer or every business is facing different challenges as a result of COVID. However, there were some fundamental issues which business faced with the disruption in normal operations. So, for example, iCertis kind of stepped up and offered a rapid 24 by 7 assistant free of charge to help companies maintain their business continuity, mitigate their disrupted supply chains, and most importantly, address other key commercial impacts by supporting our platform end users. However, we work directly with enterprises, but we ensure that we support the platform end users who are actually tackling with these critical issues. So iCertis focus mainly has been proactively working on what customer success means for customers rather than us defining it based on our data analysis. We've been proactively working on that. So mainly, I would say when it comes to the internal tech stacks, I would say drawing intelligence through all connected functions and systems have been the priority, and that overall has had a amazing effect on marketing and sales, and particularly. And iCertis recently kind of repositioned, redefined our contract management system to being a contract intelligence system. And because we thought that's the need of the hour, and that's probably how our system stands out, and that's the way forward as far as the current situation is concerned, or anything which comes up in future.
Sure, Manisha, I have a follow-on question for you on this one. Globally, when we're seeing just the pandemic has also been a great leveler, right? In terms of just giving everyone the equal opportunity suddenly, because physical interactions are somewhere, not happening, and travel is restricted. So when you look at just customers globally, how do you kind of build in cultural nuances to your customers to hit them better with the marketing, because tech can also be a very neutralized kind of a push, right? So how are you bringing in the cultural nuances through tech to kind of connect with the consumers better, especially with this entire divide on the offline?
Sure, yeah, I think that's a great question. So, I mean, you as an organization specifically catering to global customer, you always have taken care of those cultural nuances by having a localized team. But in this virtual world, when everything is kind of online and there is no physical interaction, I think first fundamental aspect in terms of over communication becomes extremely critical. So whether small things like if you're doing a video call or you're engaged with a customer, you probably change your background, which is more like a customer office, and you know little nitty-gritties of the way customer feels more personalized connect versus someone who's just virtually connected. So I think these small little things, when you kind of add, it's extremely important to be empathetic and understand what customers are going through and identify their business challenges now so that you can help make sure that they are covered in future. And as a part of iCertis, we kind of started or rather propagating and following all the processes based on this philosophy which we recently came up, which is called as four rings of responsibilities. So we kind of propagate that you have to take care of yourself, then you have to take care of your family, then you have to take care of society, and when these things are in place, you take care of your business. Ultimately, this kind of has really given our employees, in particularly, that extra sense of doing the best for customers. And as I said, that our teams are globally spread, and now it doesn't make a difference as to how and where you're working. We made sure that we kind of have different time zones covered. We have different sessions where we actually train people on different cultures so that they're aware of the smaller nuances, which is, a fundamental aspect of our learning and development team.
Sure. Also, just lastly, in terms of just when you're looking at marketing as a role, right, and just consumer targeting, is there a need when you're seeing in your teams there needs to be an upskilling towards stronger tech and personalization per se? Are you looking at even the workforce needs to be kind of updated when it comes to marketing per se, because we're talking about a completely digital world right now?
Absolutely. So I think as far as iCertis is concerned, we've been heavily sales and marketing driven company from the start, So we call our marketing team as the most sales driven marketing team. So as far as investment into best tools available are concerned, and all the leveraging the digital platforms are concerned, we've been extremely proactive. But I would certainly say that this current situation has completely removed the physical aspect of it. So I would say that sales and marketing have unified furthermore closely, whether it's to do with one to many reach out or it's the account based sales and marketing. I think in terms of volume and aggression, it has gone multifolds. But iCertis as a company were always way ahead as far as leveraging the digital aspect was concerned, from marketing perspective for sure.
Sure. I have a question for Sriram, right? I mean, this is definitely, I think, travel was something that we kind of saw being the worst hit, rather, and I won't mince my words here, rather, with the COVID pandemic. There were multi-pronged vectors when we're just talking about the travel sector and just OYO as hotels, right? You opened up the hotels for quarantine. You at the same moment of time there were customers traveling. They suddenly got to know about these dynamic lockdowns which started taking place. When you're looking at a technology platform, right? How are you kind of sewing in all the customers and enhancing yourself to keep them abreast of every single thing which is happening on ground? I mean, tomorrow a customer which has to travel and, like, let's say comes down in Delhi, understands that there is a lockdown where he's on air or something like that, right? So how are you looking at that kind of enhancement in security? Also, second thing is safety is something which you kind of brought in, which was very interesting. But with with customers quarantining in, how were you also tracking them at the same moment of time while not kind of keeping, a complete watchful eye onto that? So help us understand these nuances which you brought in with technology.
So yeah, so thanks for that. So I think what we did during this time was that we realized, and I think the questions that you rightly pointed out, right? I think these are the answers to this question cannot always be that I add more resources, or let's say I beef up more capacity at my service centers to cater to calls from consumers and answer them, right? So what we started doing during this time was that we started becoming much more proactive with our communication with our customers, right? Also, what we did was, because we had a very good sense of which are those hotels, which are so I think when it started off in May and June, you had lockdowns, and then you had cities opening up, almost like certain districts are opening up, and certain localities are opening up. So we actually had real-time information which used to flow in, right, by and large, accurately, based on which we used to decide whether the hotel is open for selling or not open for selling. And then based on information that we had, let's say if there are customers who have booked themselves into a certain hotel, and which has now suddenly that district has gone into a lockdown, we had a process where we would again start reaching out to consumers and tell them that this hotel has closed down. Here are 3 more options for you. Would you like us to shift over there, right? So it always used to almost start off daily by looking at data and seeing that which are those hotels which are open today. Are there any hotels which have been asked to close, and do we have customers staying over there, right? Second thing, also that we did during this time was that we made a heavy push towards digitization of customer service, right? Where we said that rather than always having consumers reaching out to us at contact centers or customer care centers, or why can't we launch certain chatbots or certain chat solutions where real time they can get answer to their queries, right? And we saw a very, very high adoption of that. I think the third thing the other thing that you talked about was safety, right? And I think how we solved this was very clear segregation of hotels, right? So there were a set of hotels, let's say, which were as either quarantine centers or which the government had taken up, right, for the COVID warriors. We said that obviously this cannot be opened up for retail selling, right? So it's always by saying that at design, at the source level itself, you should have a segregation of inventory. And we were very, very, and I think the hotel owners also were very honest, and they understood that you can't have a property where you also have people who which can function as a quarantine center and also which can function as a retail center, right? It just cannot happen, right? So we said so that's how we started segregating our properties and our locations. And I think during this time, what really worked for us was, while I earlier mentioned about a very strong and open channel of communication with our customers, we also continue to have a very, very strong channel of communication with our partners, with our hotel owners, right? Where we kept informing them about latest rules and regulations which were coming up. We were telling them, what is your preparedness? Are you prepared to cater to certain kinds of demand segments which are coming in, right? So I think so. These are 3 or 4 important things, 3 or 4 initiatives that we started taking up in order to ensure that almost while the industry is badly hit, we continue to provide real-time information not just to our customers but also to our partners, right? Uh, and we're just continuing that over the next few months.
So, just wanted to move on to Mohit for the question. So, Mohit, interestingly, right, again, you guys are a big consumer of data, right, in a big way per se. So, I wanted to kind of understand this as to the data that you've collected over time in terms of just customers paying for different things and different aspects. What is that leading on for you to kind of create newer kind of products in the market? Are you looking at some interesting forays per se through this personalization? Also, we saw an interesting trend of all platforms kind of opened up to offer absolutely all services during COVID, right? So how were you also kind of ensuring that there is something like that going on with PayU, but also not, overkilling it for the customer?
No, I think everybody keeps saying that data is the new oil. I think we're still at that stage where we have explored and found oil, and now we're refining it and getting it to the market, right? So it's not that data today can be monetized to the extent which everybody believes. However, from a credit perspective, and so much of payments is to do with credit, a few years back we had launched Lazy Pay, which was our pay later product, and that really used data which we had collected, and it was a great use case. Going forward from a payments perspective, we see that this convergence between both online and offline payments is coming in, and that's essentially moving towards omnichannel solutions. But like what Tom said earlier, that about personalization actually leads to greater customer experience. We also believe that to have a true omnichannel experience, it's not to do with payments or products or the modes of payment, but more to do with the customer. That customer needs to get the same sort of experience regardless of the channel through which they've entered. And that's impossible to do without actually understanding the customer. And that's where a payments firm like a PayU or a Pine Labs, who are both integral and trusted partners of so many businesses, they can actually help out with that. The other thing which I'll say is that there's always this balancing act between the usage of data and the need for better security, maintaining data privacy, the need to be GDPR and privacy bill compliant. And of course, also when it comes to payments, during the processing of a transaction, you need to reduce latency. So you need to be very careful of how can you actually use data during that particular point in time. Uh, I feel that going forward, this entire need for better and more contactless payments, which includes risk-based authentication in different shapes and forms, or even payments using wearables and devices, will all require the greater use of data and very selectively and smartly used. So I think it's for us, it's almost like a new industry opened up within the payment space, and we're super excited to see what will happen next year.
Sure. Sharath, coming to you on the question, again, with all the data that you've collected, right? I mean, how is that defining now life cycles? And please tell us in terms of 1, 2, 3, some personalization hacks that Policy Bazaar has developed. You guys have the great rating in the industry in terms of roping in customers. So please tell us in terms of what are the personalization hacks that you've kind of built on, and how is the data that you mine so far deciding on the products of the future?
So thanks. I'd actually like to talk a little bit about the kind of analysis that we do of the conversations that happen with customers. I think that's where we get a lot of very, very rich data to really understand exactly what customers are talking about, what's their mindset, what's the sentiment, and also based on their past history in terms of browsing us, their selections of products that they've made, really coming up with a kind of propensity model for likelihood of that customer visitor turning into a booker or a buyer. And that's an area that we continue to hone in on and sharpen our skills on, where basically we are in a better position to say that this is a lead that's worthwhile following up on, or this is a lead which is really a person who's browsing and is not likely to actually make a purchase. And the idea is how quickly can we do that in the conversations that we have with the customer, because we often find that especially in a situation where the demand was it was high, how do you end up servicing or making sure that you're focusing on the right kind of customers or the right kind of leads that you're getting? So there's a lot of work that we do in that area. And coming to the personalization aspect of it, I think a lot of it is really driven from the fact that the insurance business is a business where there are a large number of segments which you can create, both on the health insurance side as well as the term insurance side, uh, based on the life stage that the customer is at. and that's what we are again working hard with our insurance partners also to hone products and to get very personalized and very unique products. So we do have a few products which are actually unique to us, not sold by the rest of the market, based on a certain customer profile and the data that we have shared with the insurers. So we have a lot of data. We work in terms of just making sure that data goes back to our insurers so that they can create products that are work for the customer while being profitable for the insurer as well. And I think that's one of our greatest strengths, the fact that as a platform which is an online seller of insurance, we find that the quality and the robustness of the data that customers share with us is far, far better. And that's something that our partners have told us than what they get from other channels, which makes sure that as a channel, we are extremely profitable for our partners. And that works really well because obviously they're keen to work with us. They're keen to develop products based on the kind of data that we are sharing with them, and it is a differentiating experience from a customer point of view as well, because some of those products are not available in the rest of the market and so on. So that's the direction in which we want to move and take things forward.
Sure.
Interesting. I think to what Sharad just said, to that point, I wanted to just go around the room once and put one question to all of you guys to wrap this up in a way that, before the pandemic, we all had this certain idea of who our customer is, how we will serve that customer. And we were doing that based on learnings that had come over 50 and 60 years, right? And today we are now depending on a lot of technology. And Tom, I'll start with you because I saw you smiling there. Microsoft, for example, shut down all of your physical retail stores, right? So I'm just trying to understand that in this new normal, so to speak, is the idea of the customer changing, or given that we're also drawing a lot of data now, we're getting a lot of data, inputs on how people behave and everything. So are we understanding new things about the customer which we didn't know? And how are all of you guys looking at your customer and how you serve them, given the, all the new data that you're getting?
Oh, yeah, for sure. So look, I've been with Microsoft since 2007 now, and the company back then completely different to what Microsoft is in 2020, and especially now in these times we're in now. And you don't even have to go that far back. You'd probably be shocked that we were not a very data-driven company. I remember marketing being very event-driven, less focus on really return on marketing investment, healthy dose of tension between sales and marketing. And today, with the acceleration and a journey that we have been on, it is a very data-centric company. And we have this operating model we call Global Demand Center that allows us to run campaigns at scale and collect data and have clear KPIs as we go on lead volume, lead quality, multi-touch engagement with leads. So yeah, what Sharad mentioned, the possibility of creating lots of segments and then even creating products for these segments. In the past, we didn't do that. We had no segmentation, we had no smart scoring, and now we will do that based on demographics, based on behavior, based on you go on the Microsoft website, you download a white paper, you register for an event, you may attend it or you may not attend it. That triggers different types of customer journeys, and that means that by the time something goes to a salesperson, it has been qualified, it has been scored, and the salesperson actually believes that this is a lead worth following up. And unlike in the past, where they've ignored a big majority of it because we just gave them things that weren't necessarily relevant for them. So this approach of having more data really helps. It helps us generate demand, it helps us nurture leads, it helps us with scoring, and it gives all of our employees also all that access. So when I meet a customer now, before I do that, I look at that 360 view. I look at, with one click, basic stuff like revenue pipeline, agreements with us. But one thing I'll always do is, are there any open support cases? Do they have as a private person, maybe with Xbox, some support case, or as a business, is anything open, is anything unresolved? That's things I want to know. And that's things that I see now, and I see them in real time and without a lot of research, because I have these dashboards. So long-winded answer to yes, we have more data. I think everybody has more data. The secret will be, can you then also unify it? Can you put it in one place and utilize it for information at the very least, for insights, or even better, as Sharad said, maybe that even helps to develop completely new services, completely new products, which is obviously even more interesting then.
I think you're on mute. You're on mute.
Sorry. Manisha, I was just putting the same question to you. If you could come in and talk about, your experience in this and how you guys look at the market now.
Sure. So I would say that we were certainly data driven. We kind of marketing specifically used tools like Power BI to analyze the entire data. It is well integrated with Salesforce and uh, you know other important aspects. But I think your point is pretty valid that this particular situation has certainly brought some introspection, some change in the whole approach. So, to give you an example, after pandemic, uh, basically contractors are fundamentally in and outgoing is kind of tracked through that, and our offering is more of a horizontal offering which pretty much suits every vertical. But after COVID, there were some verticals which were really badly hit, like travel and transport, and that had a huge impact on our customers. Versus some verticals which were really picked up well, like pharmaceuticals or healthcare. And so we had to kind of assess that data and redefine our strategy. Even at persona level, maybe the chief financial officer and the chief revenue officer became more critical in this scenario because cost was, extremely important aspect of the whole scene. So we had to kind of, uh, I would say, redefine, reposition our approach based on the current scenario and based on the data which we were continuously analyzing. So that's my takes, that we certainly had to relook at, evaluate, analyze, and then reposition ourselves based on what COVID did to all of us.
Got it. Srirang, if you could also come in, because I think for Oyo, it's also two kinds of customers, right? There's the regular hotel. I mean, the guy who will check into a hotel, and also the hotel itself is going to be a customer. So how do you guys look at it now?
Yeah, so I think see, obviously what happens is that what happened is that post pandemic, all our notions and all customer data that we would have had before March 2020, right, was almost would not have generated any kinds of insights, right, post 20, because at that point of time consumer preferences were different, the macro environment was different. So what we did was that we actually did three things, right. The first one was that we launched this entire massive campaign known as Project Hello, in which leaders across the company, right, from Ritesh and leaders at various cities, they were given calling lists where they would call up customers and talk to them. And it was just a very, very free-flowing, freewheeling conversation where we were just trying to understand from customers what their preferences are, what they would do. Because I think what tends to happen is that while a lot of times we collect data from consumers using surveys, we have seen that whenever there are very large changes in the external environment itself, the survey questions by themselves might not lead to any kind of insights, right? Because they would have been predicated on certain past knowledge. So we said that leave aside quantitative surveys for the time being. Let's focus more. Obviously, we couldn't do focus group discussions, so there were one-to-one discussions that we started doing with not only our customers but also with our hotel partners. Where for customers it would be that, what will bring you back. With hotel partners it would be that what will help you to run your hotel profitably. Then what we started doing was that based on certain insights that would emerge out of these conversations, we started utilizing the power of social media, right? I think one of the great advantages that Oyo has is our consumer demographic, right? It's also a reflection of the Indian demographic, right? Young crowd between 25 to 30 heavy social media users, whether it's Facebook or Twitter. So we started using polls on Twitter where we would have where we would ask consumers that what we think that this is one initiative which could yield benefits. Do you think you would like it or not, right? So we didn't have the luxury to run A/B tests because ours is a very very physical business, right? We can't run A/B tests on platforms. So we ran these small polls, and for us, the great thing was that when based on some of these poll questions, there were certain consumers who replied back to us saying that we love this because Oyo asked this question 2 months back, and based on what responses the consumers gave, you actually acted upon it, right? Which was our sanitize before your eyes program, right? And then the third thing that we did was we said that okay, now that we have made these changes, let's now look at periodic consumer surveys, right? So we said that like I said, let's drop all old data. Let's look at things with very fresh perspective. Surveys might not be very useful because we really don't know what consumers are looking for. So let's start off with very very freewheeling kind of discussions. Don't just limit it to the marketing team. I think that was something very important that we did. We said that the external environment is such that each and every leader across functions, whether you're in finance, whether you are in business, whether you're in technology, needs to speak to the consumer, right? Because you need to understand what he or she really wants. So that's how we started it. And and for me, I think the great thing about Oyo has been that for us, we keep this word new normal has been beaten to that depth. But for us, the now this particular way in which we conduct consumer insights, or sorry, get consumer insights, is going to be how we're going to do it in future, right? So for me, I would suggest to a lot of entrepreneurs or a lot of companies that while data is great, past data is great, what consumers are clicking on your websites is great. Nothing beats talking to them directly.
Nitish, let me come to you for the closing remarks as well. I'm going to twist the question a little bit for you as well. Is obviously the segment that you're going after through tech is also a new to tech segment, right? Where there are challenges and there is a digital friction per se. So how do you see that divide coming closer? What is in the anvil more, and how do you think perceptions of these kiranas, of these shopkeepers, are now even changing further with COVID?
Look, I think that first of all, what I would say is that I want to bridge with data a little, right? And data from a CX perspective.
Right.
You gotta get the basics right, right? Why do Kiranas want to digitize? They want to digitize because they want more customers. They want to make their business more efficient, right? And that's what they want to do. So you got to get the basics right. I think from the perspective of self-service, we are clearly seeing that self-service is what customers want. It is not what companies want. If you were to give the choice to the customer, they would want to self-serve. The problem with self-service is that the data behind self-service has a lot of asymmetry. And the way that we are thinking about this is we've actually done research to find out, what are the reasons why a small merchant would want to get service. And 90% of that issues, particularly when you categorize them in L1 and L2 and L3 and L4, we find that 90% can be solved just by creating data symmetry. What does that mean? It means getting the data to the right place at the right time. I'll give you an example, right? During the pandemic, obviously physical servicing was getting to be a challenge. We are actually fortunate to have a lot of our service being in the cloud, right? So we don't actually have to do physical visits to the merchants in the field. We found that over 300,000 customers as of today have downloaded a servicing app where actually they want to get serviced, they want to get serviced within the app. And that's a methodology that we are taking for every new small business product that we're launching in the marketplace. So every product will have a corner where all of the service requirements are actually handled inside the app. That's very important. And finally, I would say that the world is getting to a lot more collaborative state, right? The platform for Kiranas is not just where our products reside. The platform has a lot of third-party apps, and I'm sure a lot of you will understand that. On the Android platform, we've got apps from various providers depending on the category of commerce that we want to deliver. You got to get the customer experience right across these multiple journeys, right? And that is where the asymmetry exists, and we are trying to solve that. The way we are solving it is by ensuring that whether you're on a Pine Labs app or you're on a third-party app, you got a single sign-on, and you're able to get aggregated data access to self-serve in the best way possible. So these are some of the ways. I really think that data is oil for creating a better CX is also about how you're refining the data, but also how you're creating the APIs from third parties to bring the data at the right place to the customer to self-serve. That is the future. But obviously, we got to personalize it. So it cannot be nobody wants to call the call center. I can assure you that people call the call center because they can't get servicing in a self-service manner. And I think that's a very important insight. And I'm not talking about, affluent customers. Of course, they want personalization, they want specialization and all of that. But there is a way that you can personalize response and personalize service by using technology and using data to get it right at the right time. That is really the thesis, and that's the principle through which we're working for the future and building CX for the future.
Sure. Sharath, how are your customers looking at this? Tier 2 seems to be a big market.
Yeah, definitely. What we're seeing is that a lot more customers from tier two markets coming online, and that's a big focus for us. What we're also realizing is that that is required us to look at regional in a big way, both from the point of view of the content that's there on the site as well as from our sales and service process. And then even from a marketing point of view, we are currently now evaluating how do we look at targeting specific regions through more localized marketing rather than marketing which is more at a national level. And a lot of that is digital, clearly based on data that we have about our customers, and enabling us to look at the kind of customer profiles that we hope to find on digital platforms, which would enable us to provide them with the best experience, and hopefully also result in the best conversion for us. I think a key factor that we keep looking at is how do we make sure that we're able to move the conversion needle. I think I mean every business, every digital business looks at that very critically, both from a marketing as well as from a sales conversion point of view, and that's where the data really helps us to target our marketing to enable us to get much more targeted leads and much more targeted visitors to the platform, um, serve them with more personalized products, and deliver a more tech-enabled service experience at the end of the whole process. Because one of the big parts of the insurance business is that post-booking process is also a fairly elaborate process where you have to submit documents and go for medicals and various other things, and getting that piece tech-enabled is a very very big piece for us, because uh, you know. The sales process, people make a booking, and then if it takes them ages to and many interactions to get their policy, that becomes a very very painful experience. And so that's the direction in which we are going, trying to enable service which is completely tech enabled, working with our partners on this. We do have dependencies, and that becomes a bit of a challenge in some cases, but clear focus is to deliver that from a customer experience point of view.
Sure. Mohit, what are
Yeah.
customers
So
looking? Yeah.
so I think when we keep talking about data is like oil, it's actually more of an emulsion with water. So it's very hard to extract that usable sort of data. And as PayU over the last year, we went out, we built this great data science team, great tools, AI, machine learning, and it's expensive and it takes a lot of effort as well. And then we sort of had an aha moment when we said, our merchants, especially the ones which the smaller, medium-sized merchants, anybody who's really not in the top 3 or a top 10 in their category, they do have to compete in the market with all these big players. And is there some way that we can actually help them with data solutions? Really, because we are a platform company, we already work with them, they trust us. And I think that's what we've started doing. So in a way, moving away from pure payments into actually becoming a true platform company where we'll help our merchants with utilizing the data which they have or the data which we jointly have to better service their customers. Because I think that's what the path for the future would be. And that's, I think, where the need also and demand comes in from the market.
So I think that brings us to the end of this panel. Thank you so much to all panelists for joining in today. It was definitely an insightful conversation. And I think one thing is clear that while the pandemic did disrupt, it brought in a lot of opportunities with it. And I think all of you at the different segments and sectors that you're at are definitely trying to kind of go behind that opportunity. So thank you so much for the audience to join us today. I hope that all of you are keeping safe. And please watch out for this space as we bring you more insights from Mint. And we're very glad to do that. So wishing you all a safe Diwali as well, and a happy festive period to all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Thanks.